How you guys doing? I'm Rick. I'm an alcoholic. Sorry for the delay. Usually I have this loaded up by now. Learning that I need to, get a new cell phone for because I like recording and then posting because I like having everything on my phone as well. But I'm running out of memory, and I guess that's a sign to learn how to do this live and go into that world now, which I got is why I got the channel. So, excuse me. So first, I want to say I'm sorry about the delay and how long it took to load last week's. I didn't expect for it to take a day and a half. It was insane, but it's there, and I'm hoping that people have viewed it. And as I'm on here, please leave your remarks, thumbs up, recommend the channel. It's a channel in development, excuse me, in progress. Learning as I go. So if you have any feedback or anything, please do tell me. I want to really put this out there and help as many people as we all can. We're this is a safe haven for people to come to express their ideas, and I'm open for that because we're all here to help each other. Next, I'm hoping to have some when more viewers, more followers. I hope to get more people on here, and we could just talk. So to start off with, before I go into this, this is about forgiveness and self forgiveness. And as I said in the description, it to me is what is needed first. The minute you start your recovering, we'll go into is why. And before anybody says anything, I do have the big book. I'm not going to read out of the big book. I mean, I'm sure all of us already know. We could touch on it in other conversations. Sorry, allergies. Um, right now, I want to show that I do have it. Actually, I got three. And this is my little nugget of information for everybody, some advice, maybe a little tool for the trade. I got three. I got one on my bookcase. So when I walk in, I see it right there. These are my first line of defenses. I learned, I think it was Mitch. Yeah, it was Mitch at the Hog said, if you got AA books, put them where you're known to start immediately going to get your drink um, or drug, whatever. You want to, however it works for you, NAAA or both. He said, put them where you immediately see them. Mine is on my bookcase. I have one by my kitchen sink right underneath my cupboard. Why? Because that's where I always kept the bottles and where I always kept the cups or glasses, right there. And I got one by my bed because when I roll over, it's right there and I see it. And I got one on my phone. So when I turn it on, boom. So I'm always trying to have that as my first line of defense to help me keep straight. I hope that works for you. Try it out. And if it works, please tell me and let me know how it goes for you. And then the second would be my sponsor. So I want to try to handle this and not handle it, wrong word. I'm trying to take this on with ways I know I can do it. And my sponsor will tell me, did you do all this, and this? No, I didn't do those two. Well, try those out. And that's how I talk to my sponsor. My sponsor is an old Army grunt and firefighter. So a lot of that mentality is you gotta take personal accountability. Um, so what I want to lead off with is Stoicism. This is a Stoicistic philosophical based channel. Not saying we're not open to spirituality, and actually, in some instances, many people say Stoicism is a form of spirituality. The thing is, as long as you are finding, again, your higher power, whatever that may be, if it works and is keeping you sober and going to meetings and staying out of trouble, then it works. And some people I find to me, Stoicism works beautifully for me. Um, Great, works wonders. I love it. It makes you think. It uses this. And we all know in the last few podcasts I put up or broadcasts I put up, alcohol does affect the mind. So, in a way, we're also thinking and remembering and focusing on stuff to help us rewire our brain and put it back to good use to what it was for. So I want to lead with and then I'll jump into the book that I love, absolutely love. So, and with this quote, I'm not going to talk about what it means to me. I want you guys to think about what it means to you. Sort of like an affirmation. We talk about affirmations. We say affirmations, and those affirmations are to give us something to focus on and to think about, to deter us, to use our brain to drive us into something more positive than our negative stuff we were doing in the past. Because we all know if that worked, we wouldn't be here. So, this is healing is a matter of time, but it is sometimes also a matter of opportunity. Hippocrates. I try to say his name. It's Greek. Forgive me. I think it's Hippocrates. Anyway, I want you to think about that. And the beautiful thing about philosophy, it is not one set thing. It is open to your interpretation of the quote and how it works for your daily life. There's not one set standard, this, and this. No, it's how does it work for you? What does it apply to you? And it could click in a matter of months, days, hours, and then a few days later, a little while later, it clicks differently. It changes as we change. So, the book I like to pull from today is Stoic Reflections. I'm just saying this is excellent reading. I recommend it. It's really good. It's Stoic Reflections, and it's got a person doing yoga. And we're going to go into forgiveness. So, when I was in rehab, I was always taught. Let me take a step back. I come from a Christian family, and we were always taught apologize first and ask for forgiveness first. They go hand in hand. Well, we already know from last week's broadcast, we burnt I'm sorry completely to the ground. We nuked that word. We scorched the hell out of that word. It's gone. It don't work. If you're an addict, you understand. How many times have you said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry in like 2 hours? You lose count. And eventually, I'm sorry don't mean nothing. It comes down to actions. And I learned when I wrote the letters, some of the counselors and other people there in the program were like, "Why'd you do that? You're missing the steps. You're gonna." No, I'm not, because I took it one step further. I believe wronging, not wronging, making right with who we wronged. So I wrote letters. Last time I wrote a letter, I was like in the army at 19 years old. So it took a while, but I just didn't slap anything down. I wrote the letters, I reread those, and deep inside, if I felt I could have added more, I'd added more. So it went from one or two to like, oof, drop extra postage. Um, because once you write it and you stamp it, seal it, and it's gone, it's gone. It's like an email. Once it's out there, it's out there. And letters are a good way of expressing true feelings and emotions, because once you get to writing, it just comes out naturally. And then that's it. But I wrote it because I wanted to make sure it sounded right. Not, oh, I'm taking this out and taking this. No, I wanted to make sure that it was 100% correct and right and 100% heartfelt. And that was my first step, because I told everybody, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Now I have to write it. Now, when you write it, it's in writing. Now they see it. They don't hear it. You see what you wrote, and then you send it, and now you got to act upon what you wrote. That's how I viewed it. And I understand I did that for a reason. Step 8, step 9, and this is what it's interpreted to me. Made a list of all persons we had harmed. Check. We think it's the people we harmed, our family, our friends, our loved ones, right? And became willing to make amends to them all. Okay. 9. Make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Those go together in my book. There's one in my eyes. I look at it as step seven, 7A. You know, I mean, step 8A, step 8B. That's how I view it because 8 and 9 go together. My mistake is 8 and 9. The one person when I in all my time and going to NA and not NA, AA, and talking to people at rehab, they were recovering for a while, 5, 6, 7 years, some 20, and they're stuck there. Like I just can't get past step 8 or step 9. I can't. Well, I fell back on old habits. I was drinking. Why? Because I couldn't. I can't forgive myself. Can't throw that word out. We're going to go over that another day. Words. We're going to get rid of that. Can't get rid of it. You can. You just either you won't or you're not ready to. We could ask people to forgive us. Remember, forgiving comes, we're going to cover that right now. Forgiveness comes from a place of true sincerity, a place of true love. And when you ask somebody to forgive you, sorry, in my whole times of being addict and drinking, I've never ever said, "Do you forgive me?" Not ever to anybody. It was always, I'm sorry," and my head in the toilet, you know, and never have I ever asked for forgiveness until I was clear minded. Um, so we're going to read out of this book right now. And I like it. I like it. So, why forgiveness matters. Forgiveness is not about condoning harmful behavior or forgetting what has happened. Again, we're going to read that one line again. Excuse me. Forgiveness is not about condoning harmful behavior or forgetting what has happened. Instead, it is about liberating oneself from the emotional toll of resentment and anger. The Stoics recognize harboring grudges often causes more harm to the person holding them than to the offender. Benefits of forgiveness. One, emotional freedom. Letting go of resentment reduces stress and promotes mental clarity. Can't say ask for forgiveness if your brain is all foggy. Two, improved relationships. Most of us are in relationships, whether married, engaged, living with somebody, our children, brother, sister. We have some sort of relationship. So this ain't just targeting that, it's targeting everything. Improved relationships. Forgiveness fosters trust, empathy, and connection, which is what we're trying to do. And we're going to get to the next kicker of this. Personal growth. Again, that's what we're here for. That's why we're in AA. That's why we are recovering, so we grow as a person. Choosing forgiveness reflects strength, self mastery, and alignment with higher values. Modern psychology supports these insights with studies showing that forgiveness improves mental health, which is what we need, reduces anxiety, which is a big contributor to why we drink. We become overwhelmed again and we just want to go fall back on bad habits. No, not good. And enhances overall well being. It's pretty cool, huh? So here's a trick kicker. We talked about this last week. If we ask somebody for forgiveness, 100 wholehearted, they say a few things like this. I'm not sure if I am able to right now, or in due time, or I will little by little, or let me please think about it. They're not being jerk offs or resentment because it's a different, I'm sorry. No, asking forgiveness comes, like I said, from a real deep down place of sincerity. And they know that, but our family's been hurt so many times, they're not just going to jump in. They will in due time. But another one I like, I will, but you got to build me up. You got to build yourself up to where I can forgive you. That's not shooting you down. That's not smacking you down. That's saying where they honestly feel. And the way Mitch said, I love Mitch. He said, you got to give him the floor. You got to give him space. Asking is your first step of moving forward. They're not going to rush right into it. They're going to need time. We butchered that for them. We destroyed that. Dropped the bomb, A bomb, nuked it. Now we got to give it time to happen naturally. We can't rush it. But what that tells you is, all right, they're not ready to. So what do I got to do? I got to prove that I want their forgiveness, that I can have their forgiveness. And your actions are going to speak louder than your words. How many times have we said words? We're going to stop. We're going to better. We're going to go to our meetings. We're going to go get help. And then next thing you know, or I got this. I'm not an alcoholic or an addict. I'm not. I got this. And then right back at, we burnt that. So now our actions got to speak for themselves. It's not easy, but it can be done. Here's the kicker. The hardest level of forgiveness is forgiving yourself. Again, go to your AA meetings, go to rehab, sit in on them. Listen, I'm here because it was hard for me to forgive myself for all I've done. What's holding you back is guilt. That guilt is so heavy on your shoulders that's weighing you down. It's beating you down. It's just saying you ain't going nowhere. You're mine. But we're letting that guilt hold us down. We are. We're letting that guilt stop. Well, we're letting that guilt getting in our way of forgiving ourselves. Self-sabotage. We're getting there. We feel good. Oh, no, I can't. We just let that guilt hold us back. Can't do that. Forgiving ourselves. This is very deep right here. Stoics also emphasize the importance of self-forgiveness. Just as we acknowledge the imperfection of others, we must accept our own. Now, here it is. Accept our own mistakes, not mistakes. We made mistakes. Plain and simple. We made them. We got to own them. We must accept our own mistakes as part of the human experience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, don't be ashamed to need help. Like a soldier storming a wall, you have a duty to the body you're trying to protect. How to practice self-forgiveness. Reflect on a mistake or the mistakes, we're going to throw that in there, you've made. Come on, we got a list. Don't do them all at once. You're just going to be overwhelmed. One at a time. Checklist. And not just think about it, reflect on it, learn from it. This is going to the four who's. You'll see this is that gap in between, giving you a little bit more food for thought. Acknowledge the lesson it taught you, admit to acting differently in the future. Now, I don't like the word acting. It's loosely termed. It could be open to translation. I don't like acting. Acting could be a facade. It could be manipulated. Come on, last week, if you have to listen to that podcast again, go for it. And commit to being different, being you, becoming a better you. That should be your goal. Becoming a better you, not acting. Anybody could act. But to commit to growing into a better person. How's about that? We'll lose that. And you could take that how you see fit and interpret it as. Release the guilt. You got to get rid of that guilt, man. Recognizing that self-forgiveness is an act of courage and growth. Again, release the guilt. Recognizing that self-forgiveness is an act of courage and growth. And we run into that. Trust me. It takes a while. Now, there's no time on when you could do this. It just happens. Some of it happens quicker. Some it takes a little while because we got to accept. It goes into AA, not Alcoholics Anonymous, acceptance, accountability that we discussed. We're going to hit that deeper probably a couple weeks from now. But briefly, you got to accept who you are, what we are, what we did, to who we did. And we got to be accountable for our actions. We have to be accountable for our behavior. We got to be accountable for the chaos and everything that we did. And if you look at that, AA equals guilt. Because you don't want to get, it's opening that guilt up. And you have to confront that guilt. But once you accept that, it takes away that guilt. It's weird. Think about it, because when you're trying to accept it and you're trying to be accountable, that guilt piles back on your shoulder. Man, I failed here's the thing. You failed yourself, and in the end, you failed your family. But we have a tendency to say, I feel guilty because I failed everybody out there. But you're missing the one piece. You. It starts with you. Think of that pond effect I talked about on the first one. Drop a pebble in the pond, the ripples don't come outside in, ripples come inside out. It starts from that pebble. You're that pebble in that pond of the world. So now you got to realize it starts with you. Then everything affects in a negative or positive way how you look at it. And it's how you interpret it. But you got to forgive yourself. And that's acknowledging the guilt. Now, acceptance and light is, man, you know what? I could be negative or I could be positive. You know what? I did accept that. I do accept I am an alcoholic. I'm not saying be bright eyed, bush tailed, and chippy and cheery about it. No, I'm saying you got to accept that. Man, when you raise your hand, how many times do people say, I'm an alcoholic? They're not ready to accept that. Tone of voice, body language, and approach make a difference. People, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. I'm here to work. You can hear the tone and the voice and what's meaningful. When you acknowledge that, or not acknowledge, accept that, things are going to start becoming also easier to overcome that guilt. And then you become accountable. Oh, the other A word, man, I did all of this. Again, you can look at that negative. When you look at things negative, the guilt surprisingly is magnified. It's there. But when you say, man, I did all that, now to fix it. But you got to fix yourself before you fix everything else. And half the time, it's not really fixing it becomes easier because now you're looking at it as I got work to do to show I'm not that person I was. I'm becoming better. Now you're ready to forgive yourself because you're working through all that guilt and that pain and that suffering and the chaos you caused. And it could happen out of the blue. Like the day I forgave myself, I was dead asleep. I woke up, and this is the craziest place, the good place it happened, but the worst place it happened at the time. I woke up bawling. I'm not afraid to say that. I'm not ashamed to say that. And I forgave myself. The rough thing was I had nobody there next to me or in the room to want to talk to. And that was what was really hard about it. But the next day, I was able to really focus in on my training I call it training, but recovering and growing the tools and getting it down. And not never going to get it down, but getting the foundation down. Because when you forgive yourself, it takes like you'll feel it. When you forgive yourself, it's out of the blue. You're like huge sigh of relief. Now everything is going to be clear. Yes, we're still going to have the tatters of guilt hanging on, and they're slowly going to fall off. It takes time. But I feel This is mean, and if I'm wrong, tell me, or if you disagree, please tell me. 8 and 9 is all about forgiving, but it's not telling you you have to forgive yourself. It's asking to make amends with others you hurt, but the main person that's hurt that you did damage to in the ripple effect is you. You got to make amends and forgive yourself. And there's no I can't. There is no I can't do it. I just can't. It's I won't, but you can, or I don't have the strength to do it. You do have the strength. The strength is there. You just got to be willing to fight to get through all that guilt to put it to rest. Well, here's the thing, man, it's hard. What we did is what we did. What we did in the past is what we did in the past. That's why they call it the past. To learn from the past. So we don't make those same mistakes again. We learn, you know, keep repeating the past. You're doomed to fail all the time. And then that failure is going to be going right back to what got us where we're at to begin with. We're going to drink. We're going to do something stupid. And it's going to add to more guilt. And people's not going to want to believe in us or trust us. And that's because of what we're doing. Again, you're are responsible. This is dichotomy of control, and we'll go into that. And this ties beautifully with this. You are responsible for your actions, your decisions, your thoughts, how you handle your emotions, reactions. You know, you're responsible for your choices, not anybody else. So if you look at that, you have a choice at that time to forgive yourself. It's so easy to ask other people to forgive us. It's hard, but it's easier. But we find it harder to forgive ourselves because we know what we did. As soon as you start sobering up and you start remembering, I mean, sure, a lot of times you're not going to remember certain things because memory is shot now, but you're going to remember a good amount of it, or people's going to tell you, yeah, man, you did this and that, and this is how you hurt me. They're not telling you to make you feel guilty. In fact, they're telling you to make you realize what you did was messed up, but now you can work through it. They're not, you gotta let them have the floor, and those are going to trigger memories. But you got to have control to say, okay, I can work with this. And you got to have the strength to do that. Everybody has the strength to forgive themselves, but it's hard. I challenge you to do this, to develop the ability and the strength. Look in the mirror. When you can look in the mirror and say, I truly forgive myself, truly do, you're going to see everything in a different view. The weight is going to be brought off your shoulders. And whether you live by the book, these steps are designed to also help you, or you come from a good family. I say you got to ask for, asking people for forgiveness. Try that out. Because in the end, I look at 8 and 9 as having to do with me, forgiving myself. And that's where I got, that I had to tackle. Because I asked other people for forgiveness. That's why I wrote the letters. Because to me, I looked at those, I didn't skip a step. I looked at those like that has to deal with me. And other people have open interpretations. I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong here. I'm not trying to get into a contest with anybody of battle of the wits and battle of the knowledge on AA. I'm not. I'm just saying how I interpret it and what worked for me. Again, I'm going to hit it again was writing those letters, heartfelt letters, sending them out. And at times, I wrote a letter to myself and then I threw it out because I felt good. And try that. Try writing a letter to yourself, and not a short letter, but a heartfelt, deep letter. However, you're going to do it, I guarantee once you do that, you're going to pour it out. And then that's a way of getting rid of all that guilt that you did. And then you can keep it and look at it, or you can burn it, because that's what you're doing with that guilt. You're burning it away. You're throwing it in the fire and you're burning it. You're burying it. Not even burying it because you don't want to relive that. You're going to burn it. And that feels good when you burn it. Now you have a fresh start. Whatever tricks of the trade or tools you want to bring to the table to get you to that point where you are strong to forgive yourself. And they're going to see that. They're going to see you ask for forgiveness, but they're always going to ask you. Everybody I've asked, did you forgive yourself yet? I believe you could ask for people for forgiveness, but in the end, you have to forgive yourself. Self forgiveness is very important in rehabbing and recovering. And I'm not going to guarantee, but I can pretty much ensure that when you forgive yourself, your chances of staying sober have increased because you let all that guilt go. And what caused me to continue to drink before I went to rehab was the guilt and the inability to forgive myself. If one thing I pulled, and the thing with rehab, there's so much experience. Remember, experience. We're going to talk about that another day. Experience is experience, whether it's good or bad. It's experience and lessons, and some people will say wisdom. There is in rehab, there's so much wisdom, and people are there because they love what they are doing. They're loving helping people, and they want to make sure that we are strong. But there's only so much they could put in 1 hour. Remember, a lot of them where I went only had an hour to work with you. So they had to get to the bread and butter of what they felt. But you could see it. They wanted to talk more about stuff. I mean, there's certain stuff where I was like, oh man, I need to focus on. And that's what the beautiful thing is. It's like subject matters. It all matters. All subjects in school help, but you're gonna have the ones that you want to lean to more. Like the counselor Scott, me and him butted heads. Um, Good man though. He walked around with Daily Stoic quotes for a day for 1 year. Really good book by Ryan Holiday. And I had that book and I just fell off bandwagon, like I said before, in the past on other podcasts, because I started drinking again. I was like, I'm good. And no, I wasn't. And after reading a Stoic for the day while I was there, one quote while I was there, and again, the goal is to read one quote, break it down, understand it. It tells you what it means, but how are you going to take it and interpret it? And then after you read it for a year, there's certain quotes that you're going to want to jump back and forth, and you highlight those. You get the little sticky pads, and that's all he did. He said, I read this and I read it again and again, but there's quotes that stick out the most that he always talked about. So all the subject matter there, the lessons, the training, and I call it training because you're retraining your mind, your body, and your spirit. Again, yoga, the reflections. I gravitated towards reflections and stoicism because that clicked with me right there. And the reason why I like stoicism is you got to be responsible for yourself, your choices, your decisions, your thoughts. Nobody else is responsible for that. So self forgiveness falls on you when you're ready to. It's got to be when you're ready. But realize if you're holding on and harboring that guilt and that pain, you're going to end up right back in the beginning, in the front, drinking until you find the strength to forgive yourself, however long that may take. There's people I've known who's stuck on step 8 or 9 who haven't made it past it. They're still sober, but they're learning now to forgive themselves so they can move forward. Not everybody does go back to the front, but some stay there until they find a way. It's just but you gotta want to forgive yourself. You know, we screwed up so much, but it's not permanent. We have a chance to change that, to write a new chapter. We finished that chapter. Now it's time to start writing a new chapter, you know, of our book of life. Some of us, we got volumes, you know, but self-forgiveness is what's important. It's gonna open up to more peace, serenity, and that's what we're after. We're after that serenity. There's a saying, you got to chase peace to get peace. It's there, but you got to go get it. It's never going to be plopped in your lap. There you go. You got to go get it. And forgiving yourself is going to bring you that. That's the first step to pursuing and achieving peace and serenity, calmness, everything you want, everything you need, everything you feel that you need in your life starts with forgiving ourselves. Every day I say, look in the mirror, confront yourself, confront that guilt. I like the fact that way we had reflections, journal. Journaling, people laugh at it, but let me tell you, some of the greats throughout history journaled every day. They're good days, they're bad days, they're just days. And they become the past. But it's what you learn from those days. You just journal. And I guarantee when you start journaling, right then, we're going to talk about gratitude later. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. That changes your mind too. That gives you the ability to look for the goodness and the beauty in the world that we forget about because we're overwhelmed with guilt and self-pity and we're wallowing in it. We got to get past that in order to forgive ourselves so now we can see what's, the brighter future that we can have. And it starts with self-forgiveness. We could ask for forgiveness, they could forgive us, but you have to forgive yourself to completely move forward. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to. But that's what today's about, self-forgiveness. um, I hope I could give you a little bit of nuggets to roll with, but if I could tell you what works for me is every day, um, I journal. I write what I'm grateful for, and if an experience that was a good experience popped up, I don't look at why did this happen to me. I look at what can I learn from this. And what that does is that's called reframing the mind. And we'll talk about that too. There's so much I want to talk about, but reframing the mind is going to give you the ability to forgive yourself. All this is tied in together, just like the steps and the traditions. They're all tied in together to give you the strength and the ability to have different tools to stay sober, to pull from when you encounter specific situations. Now you got different tools. One don't work, you got another. That one don't work. Oh, let's make it a combination. Now this works. That's what's important. But it starts with self-forgiveness. So I challenge you, don't wait till tomorrow. Do it today. Don't put off, was I saying, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. Look in the mirror today. I don't want to because I'm not going to like what I see. Of course, you're not going to want to like what you're going to see. But that's the objective. That's the goal. That's what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to not like what you see so you could become what you envision yourself, because you could become whatever you see yourself as. But it starts with self-forgiveness. You got to see the chaos and the darkness and all that you wrought upon because it was your actions that caused it, your choices, but they can be changed. Self-forgiveness is a beautiful thing, people. You could change it. And all it takes is and having compassion on yourself, loving yourself. This all ties in together. When you love yourself, you have compassion, self-forgiveness is going to be beautiful. When that happens, you're going to wake up and you're going to see the world in a totally different view. I promise you that. That's the beauty of self-forgiveness. So that is it for today. If you have any comments or anything, please leave them for me. So that way, or any ideas you want to talk about, I read them all the time. I will read them, I promise. This is open. But I hope you guys have a great day. If spring's coming up, enjoy it. It's going to be nice this week. Enjoy your time. Love your family. Love yourself. Have a good night.